Once upon a time in a small village long ago, there lived two brothers. The elder brother was blind, so he spent most of his time at home, while the younger brother worked as a farmer. However, their farm was constantly being destroyed by the abundance of animals in the fields. The younger brother was troubled by this problem, but eventually came up with a solution. He thought, "Why not ask my blind brother to scare the animals in the fields? He can sit in the field and shout if he hears any animal sounds, and in this way, the crops will be saved." After considering the idea, the younger brother built a small hut in the field and placed the elder brother inside it. He explained to him, "Brother, if you hear any animal sounds, just shout, and the animals will run away, saving our crops." The elder brother agreed to his younger brother's idea and began sitting in the field. Whenever he heard the sound of animals, he would shout and scare them away. They continued this practice for several days. One day, a deer broke through the fence and fled. Shortly afterward, a king who was also chasing the deer entered the field. The king noticed the blind brother and asked him, "Have you seen a deer pass by here?" The blind brother replied, "Your Majesty, I am blind. How can I see a deer? But I can tell you that the animal that left my field is not worth chasing. You are wasting your time." The king was astonished by the blind brother's words and wondered how he knew that. The king asked if the blind man was lying about being blind. The blind man replied, "Your Majesty, the animal you think is a deer is actually a pregnant doe. I have never heard of a king hunting a pregnant doe, so I tell you it is not worth your pursuit. Do not waste your time chasing her." The king was amazed to hear this and could not understand how the blind man recognized the doe as pregnant. The king thought about how a blind person could know that and how he could be sure that the doe was pregnant. The king felt the need to verify the blind man's claim, so he instructed the chief guard, "I want this animal alive, and I need confirmation whether the doe is indeed pregnant. The blind man seems very sure of this, and I need to investigate. Please go and find out if she is pregnant." The chief guard received the king's orders and executed them. When he returned, he informed the king that the blind man was right and that the doe was indeed pregnant. The king was filled with astonishment and could not understand how the blind man knew about the doe's pregnancy. Many questions swirled in the king's mind, so he decided to ask the blind man to come and get to the bottom of this insight. When they met, the king said to the blind man, "I don't know if you are truly blind or not, but I have come to ask you one thing. Will you give me the correct answer to my question?" The blind man replied, "Your Majesty, you can ask me anything you want, and I will answer you truthfully." The king said, "You are a wise man and seem to have a deep understanding of many things. Today, I have come to you to find out if my wife is faithful to me or not." The blind man replied, "Your Majesty, what kind of question is this? Your marriage has lasted for many years, and now you want to know such things. Why do these questions come to your mind?" The king insisted, saying, "You must answer this question. If you do not provide an answer, I will punish you with death." Upon hearing the king's threat, the blind man said, "Your Majesty, if you want an answer to this question, you will have to do something important for me." The king asked, "Tell me, what must I do?" The blind man replied, "You will have to leave your wife alone with me in a room." The king was initially angry upon hearing this, but he eventually agreed to the request and ordered his commander to leave the blind man and the queen alone in the room. At that moment, the blind man expressed his desire to touch the queen. Upon hearing this, the queen became angry and began beating the blind man with her hands and feet with all her might. Afterward, the blind man somehow managed to escape. He went to the king and said, "Your Majesty, your wife is not faithful." The king became furious, drew his sword, and went to the queen. He then asked her a question, warning her that any lie would lead to her execution. He asked if she was faithful or not. The queen replied, "Your Majesty, you may kill me, but I am not faithful." The king felt overwhelming happiness because everything the blind man had said was true. Upon hearing this, the king immediately went to the blind man and asked, "How did you know that my wife is not faithful?" The blind man replied, "Your Majesty, quite simply, your wife told me. When I expressed my desire to touch her, she became so angry that she started beating me. When I told her I wanted to touch her, she could have refused, but instead she began to beat me. And in this process, she touched my entire body. How can such a woman be faithful? The king said, "You are very wise." Then another question came to the king's mind, and he said, "Well, let's continue. I want to ask you another question, and I want the correct answer. Then I will let you go. Tell me, am I really my father's son, or someone else's?" The blind man replied, "Your Majesty, why do you care about this question? Regardless of your parents, you are the king of this state. So, let go of this question." But the king insisted, "I want the precise answer to this question. This question will always bother me, so I want to know the truth." The blind man replied, "Your Majesty, I can tell you now who you are, but before that, I want you to promise me that you will not get angry with me." The king said, "I promise I will not get angry with you." The blind man then told the king, "You are indeed your father's son, but you are also under the influence of a miserly merchant." Upon hearing this, the king quickly went to his mother and asked, "Please tell me the truth. Am I really my father's son or someone else's? If you do not tell me the truth, I will end my life over this." The king's mother said, "My son, you are indeed your father's son, but you are also under the influence of a miserly merchant." When he heard this, the king was delighted and immediately returned to the blind man and asked, "How did you know about the miserly merchant's influence?" The blind man replied, "Your Majesty, you have asked me many questions, and I have given you the correct answers to all of them. If it were another king, I would have received many rewards by now. But you have not given me a single penny so far. From this, I deduce that you are very miserly." The king burst into laughter and said, "Whatever you ask for, I will give it to you. But tell me, how do you distinguish between right and wrong? How can you provide such accurate and coordinated answers to these questions?" The blind brother replied, "Your Majesty, I am blind by nature, but I have an ease in understanding things. I can easily understand the thoughts of any person because the mind has its language, which can be seen in a person's body language. By observing a person's eyes, lips, mannerisms, and activities, you can understand what is on their mind. Based on that, we can know anyone's thoughts. Since I am blind, I understand through actions. If I want to know something, I assign a task to the person and observe how they perform it. Based on that, I can understand what is on their mind." The king asked, "Does this mean that I too can understand someone's thoughts?" The blind man replied, "Certainly, you can also understand anyone's thoughts. But first, you need to work on yourself. This work involves calming your mind and bringing it into the present. Focus your mind. When we focus our minds and immerse our thoughts in the present, we can understand others' thoughts because that person is thinking in the present. We must also bring our minds into the present. Only then can we understand their thoughts. If we are thinking about past events, how can we know what the next person is thinking at the moment if we are immersed in past events?" After that, the blind man said to the king, "For your Majesty, I will tell you the 3 ways through which you can easily understand anyone's thoughts." The blind man told the king, "Your Majesty, the first way is to pay attention to the eyes. The most important thing when talking to someone is to look into their eyes because the eyes do not speak, but they say a lot. If we learn to understand the signals in a person's eyes, we can know what is on their mind, what they are thinking, and what they are about to do. So, if you want to know others' thoughts, you must focus on their eyes, their gaze, and the direction they look. If their eyes wander here and there when you talk to them, it means they are looking for a way to escape the conversation. Someone might be lying if they avoid direct eye contact. This means they fear their lie will be exposed, and people will know the truth. But if their gaze is fixed on you without moving, they are likely honest, interested, and want to talk to you and share their thoughts." The blind man continued, telling the king about the second way, saying, "Your Majesty, there is another language as well, which is the language of gestures and body language. To understand a person's thoughts, we need to understand hand gestures and body language. When someone speaks, you might notice that they keep moving their hands and making gestures in addition to words. Their body language plays a significant role in conveying what they are thinking. Your Majesty, the body and hands can say many things without words. They act as a secret way of communicating, allowing you to see what people want and feel through the small things they think about. When someone taps their fingers quickly while talking, for you, when the fingers make a rapid sound on something, it might mean they are bored, anxious, or want to end the conversation soon. Also, when someone crosses their arms, it might indicate they do not like you or what you are saying, and they are hiding their thoughts from you. This way of holding their arms acts like a wall that keeps their thoughts and feelings from others. By seeing this sign, you can be kind and cautious. Sometimes people who touch their faces a lot when talking to you can help you know what they are thinking. This often means they are anxious or thinking seriously. These small touches show you what is on their minds and in their hearts. The blind man continued and told the king about the third way, saying, "Also look at facial expressions and how their eyebrows move. If their eyebrows lower while they look away, they might be thinking deeply or feeling worried about something else. If their eyebrows raise and their eyes widen, they might be surprised or curious about what you are saying. Also, look at how big or small their pupils are. The pupil is the black part of the eye. If the pupil enlarges, it means they are attracted to you or what you are saying. They are excited or happy. If the pupil shrinks, it means they do not like you or what you are saying. They feel uncomfortable or angry. Also, sometimes a person shows different behaviors through their face. If you pay attention to a person's facial expressions, you can easily understand whether the person feels disappointed, very sad, or extremely happy. You can also know what they are feeling inside. All these things can be identified through their facial expressions. Your Majesty, the face is like a picture that shows what people are feeling inside, even if they do not say anything. If you want to understand people better, you need to pay attention to these silent signs. The eyes are very important in this. The smaller and shinier they become, the better. By seeing and understanding these signs on the face, you will be able to know what people are thinking and feeling inside, whether they express their feelings out loud or remain silent. Their faces will show you what is in their hearts. Whether the person speaks with words or not, you can understand everything from their faces. The blind man completed his speech to the king, and his words impressed the king and those present. The king exchanged looks of appreciation and admiration for the blind man. Then the king rose from his seat and said in a voice filled with gratitude, "You have been a source of inspiration and wisdom for us. Your advice this time has exceeded our expectations and made us realize a lot of what we were ignorant of. Thanks to your sound thoughts, we will be able to understand the desires and needs of our people better, which will strengthen and enhance our rule." The king paused for a moment and then ordered the servants to bring an ornate box. The box was opened to reveal a precious gift and shining gold coins. The king said, "Allow me, wise one, to present you with this gift as a token of our deep gratitude. It is merely a simple symbol of the appreciation and respect we hold for you." The blind man then left the king's palace to return to his brother and work in the fields. Perhaps the animals had destroyed their fields in his absence. As you see in life and in your life, to be good at understanding others through their bodies and hands, you need to be patient, observe carefully, and appreciate the things they do not say. These small but significant signs are like a quiet book, showing you the hidden emotions and thoughts inside them, and allowing you to communicate with them better. If we pay attention to and correctly understand these three ways, we can quickly know what is on a person's mind, how much attention they give to words, and what is happening in their mind. But before that, you must do this. Focus your mind and bring it into the present. Only then can you notice all these behaviors, understand them, and perceive what is on the person's mind. If you are preoccupied with past events or plans, you will never pay attention to a person's body language and will never understand what is happening in their minds and what they are thinking. Remember, knowledge has the power to elevate your life. We wish you a better life day by day.